We are not going to spend most of the day on regular content. Nevertheless, I'm going to spend today on something very important. Before we get going, I do have one reminder. Tonight is Jasmine's review session. Remember all of the study sessions that we have had up to this point have largely been focused on tips and tricks. How do we learn? How do we take notes? What are the tests going to look like? Those sorts of things. From here on out, the study sessions are really going to be focused on content. So all of the information that we've gone over, we can now go to study sessions and really review the material itself, which can also be really, really helpful. So Jasmine's study session tonight is really going to be focused on really the first sort of half of everything we've gone over. So that entire like biothemes thing through, I'm going to say something like carbs. Is she? But regardless, a lot of it too also gets catered to who's there. So what kinds of questions you ask, and what kinds of things you guys want to go over when you're there. And that's the case with any study session. So don't forget about that. That's tonight at 7 p.m. Highly recommend. Always the name of my TA study sessions. Okay, so I'm going to spend most of today, as I mentioned, not talking about material. We will probably pick it up the last 10 or 15 minutes. But what I actually want to spend most of the day talking about is an assignment, which is a bit unusual for me, but this assignment is so important, is worth talking about. So as we go into week 4, and congratulations, we've now all officially survived to week 4, we can see that our goals for the week are somewhat unusual, right? So at the bottom here, we have sort of our common goals, although they're a bit light-handed. Some of these we've already sort of touched on before. We'll get to this stuff probably more towards the end of Wednesday and on Friday when we meet again. But the main part of our goal list is all about our homework, our big homework for this week, lesson 3, right, our third research lesson. And all of this is focused on this because this research lesson is really big. It's not worth more points or anything than anything else. But what you're actually doing in it is really big. Okay, so remember our research lessons exist. I'm in a bad mood today. To help us build our research paper without having to do it all at once. And so we've been working on what's in a journal article, how do we build graphs, and that will make more sense in a minute while we spent time on that. This one is got 2 big goals in it. Okay, and this is why it's so important. Firstly, you're going to choose the topic for your research paper. That in and of itself is kind of a big deal, right? The other thing you're going to do is actually choose one of the resources that you need in order to write your research paper. So this is what makes this assignment so important. And as you'll find, you have to pass this assignment in order to successfully complete pretty much anything else down the research lesson line, right? Or your paper for that matter. That's intuitive, right? You have to have a topic to write a paper. And you need sources to write a paper. So this one is really important that we work on it, give it our attention, and get it right. Okay, so I recommend, and we're not going to do this in class, that you actually watch this video, which is going to help you along. So I'm just going to focus on the other two resources. Okay, so we're going to spend a lot of time looking at this red PDF, which is going to walk us through step by step what to do. And just like before, I'm going to go inside the blue assignment, just like we did last week. Inside the assignment, in addition to reading the instructions to the assignment, which some of you missed last time, we have the actual thing we need to fill out, so I'm going to download that. Okay. Back here so I can actually look at things as we need to go. Okay, so first and foremost, what we need to do is pick ourselves a topic. Okay. Now, as we're doing this, as we're working on our paper, as we're picking our topic, I really want you guys to spend more than a hot second doing this. Okay, because in the end, and I mean this very honestly, I want you guys to pick something that is actually interesting to you. Okay. The more interesting this is to you guys, the less you're going to hate doing this, quite honestly. Okay. Now, I get that it's an assignment and it's for class and it's like reading a book, right? Even though you like reading a book for English class always kind of makes you hate that book. I get that. Okay, so you're never going to love doing this. Nevertheless, if it's something that you don't hate, you're less likely to be miserable the entire time you do it, right? If you are interested in the topic, you're going to have a little bit of fun learning about it. So we're going to get on that bus. So when you're picking your topic, I want it to be something that's kind of interesting to you. Okay? So our first choice is we can see that we have sort of 4 categories of topics that we need to choose between. Okay? Option 1 is basically positive relationships between organisms. Okay? Option 2 is going to be challenges of organisms living in extreme places. Okay, extreme places, we can think like desert, or the Arctic, right? Those sorts of places. Okay. Evolution of ecosystems in response to climate change. Okay. This one feels like it's very namby-pamby, but ultimately we're looking at how different organisms interact with each other. Okay, so I might pick like caribou and reindeer. If I'm looking at a food chain. Okay, what happens to puffins if fish disappear? Okay, one of their main food source. Okay. Or plain climate change. Okay, so what happens to just reindeer? Okay, if it gets really hot where they live. Or penguins or polar bears or whatever. Okay, so I'm going to pick something out of these categories. Okay, so which thing do I like best? Do I like relationships? Do I like challenges? Okay, which major category do I like? And then I'm going to pick a bullet underneath. Okay, so for example here, you can see I chose mutualism. That was my big category. And then under that I chose animal fungus. Okay, which was the specific bullet point. Everybody see that? Okay, so if I did that then, I'm going to go to my Microsoft Word document. That's the answer to my first box. Nice and simple. Okay, the whole topic though, not just mutualism, not just animal and fungus, mutualism of an animal and a fungus. Okay. That's 1 out of 2 goals down. I picked at least part of a topic. Okay. From here, though, we really need to narrow this down, okay? I'm in college, and I'm writing a 2-page paper. I cannot write about all of the mutualisms between all of the animals and all of the fungi that exist in the entire planet. Okay, that's how you get a doctorate. And even then, that's probably too much. Okay, so this is not something we can feasibly grapple. So what I want to do is decide how I can narrow this down to a topic that's feasibly manageable in 2 pages. So I'm going to go to Google, quite literally. Okay, I'm not going to overthink this. I'm literally probably going to type mutualism, animal, fungus. Okay, I like to keep it simple. Now there's 2 ways I can look at this and successfully find something cool. All right, one is just look at your search results, and that's what you see on the left-hand side of my screen here. All right. You can see like my first result is literally mutualism between fungi and animals. Okay? This is probably one of those like top 10 coolest animal-fungi relationships that you've never heard of. Okay, if I click on that, I'm probably going to find something cool. Okay. The second one down is probably also not bad. Okay. It clearly, it says CK12 Foundation. Okay, this to me says that it's probably a high school page. Might be a little below our game. Okay, probably made by some high school science teacher nerd. Okay, but at this point, all we want to do is look at what animal-fungus relationships exist. Okay, and so this is probably also reasonable to click on and see, like, what do they have on here. Okay. The other place you can go is skip this business, okay, and literally click on images. That's what I have on this side of the page. Okay. And so then we can just look at cool-looking pictures, straight up. All right, and so when we get there, we can see like, oh, that ant looks cool. I'm going to do that. Okay. Now, most of these pictures probably come from the first 10 or so same websites, but you may respond to an image a lot quicker than you respond to reading 40 minutes into a web page, right? And I'm on to whatever's easier and whatever makes you respond and say, yeah, that's pretty cool, I want to do that. Okay? So images are also a great way to go. So if you see an image you like and the web page is attached to you does not look super sketchy, okay, do that. Okay? So whatever it is, okay, the key here is we need to narrow all of the broad terms from whatever our original topic is. So remember, our topic was mutualism of an animal and fungi. Okay, so for us, animal and fungi are broad terms. I can't do all of animals and I can't do all of fungi. So I need to get a specific animal and I need to get a specific fungi. All right. Now I don't need to get super species. I can just do like ant as my animal. Okay, it doesn't need to be the red-bellied worker ant. Just ants is fine. Okay, so you can see I made one up, all right, and I've chosen moon scorpion and rock fungi. But whatever your topic is, I'm going to scroll back up here. We look at our topics. Any terms that are general are the terms you need to narrow in. Okay, so animals, fungus, plants, bacteria, all those terms need to be specified. Okay, that's pretty intuitive. Same thing with species here. You'd have to pick your species. When we come down to challenges, you'd have to pick your plant or animal. You also have to pick your extreme condition. Okay, hot, you're cold, you're dry. In this case, you would just pick a plant or an animal and the place they live. So I'd pick like desert cactus. I'm in the desert, that's my dry place, and looking at a plant, a cactus, right? So find your terms in your statement. Those are the things that we're going to narrow. Does that make sense? Okay. Yes, ma'am, we're very bored. Okay. So I've done my Google. So I'm going to come back here. My broad keywords are just my Google search terms. Okay, so if I literally wrote, that's not a word. Okay, in my Google search bar, that's what I'm going to put there. Okay, if I had to try 2 or 3 different things, then I put 2 or 3 different things there. Okay, there's not a right or wrong answer for these keywords boxes. Okay, honesty is what makes this right or wrong. Okay, so whatever you Googled, okay, put that here. My narrow topic now is whatever Google and I worked out together. So now I'm doing, okay, my narrowed animal, which I said was a rock scorpion. Scorpion was never a good word. And whatever my narrowed fungus is. Actually, I think I got these backwards, but it's fine. I made them up anyway. Okay, so all I'm doing is changing my animal and my fungus word for whatever more specific, right? So ant is my animal. Okay, rose is my plant. Okay, so this is my final Google search terms. Okay, nothing else. We don't have paper names, author names, any of that business here. Just literally, what did I exchange animal and fungus to? All right, next box, specific keywords. Okay, so obviously I'm doing another search, right? This time I'm going to a different place. So now I'm back on our eLearn page. And in this case, now I want to go to the UC library. So I want to go to UC Quest. UC Quest is basically Google search, but for peer-reviewed or journal articles. So, hey, I'm going to go back, and it doesn't matter what eLearn page you go to. I'm using ours because we happen to already be there. But you could be on your university page, you can be on your psych page, it doesn't matter. Up at the top, we have that red bar that I'm usually complaining about because it's in the way. Today, it's going to be helpful. Okay. So in that third or middle option, you see we have UC Library. So I'm going to hit that. It's conveniently going to open that up in another bar, so our eLearn page is even still up. Right, so there are a lot of super useful links in the Schoenbaum library. Most of you are either going to get walked through how to do all of this stuff or have already, so I'm going to spend 0 time talking about any of it, with the exception of the one thing I care that you know about today, and that is UC Quest, which is conveniently the very top link under Library Services, which is where we're all going to click again. Bing. Made me a little nervous because things seem to be a little cranky today. All right, so here we have something that now looks a lot like Google, right? Okay, so that being said, what you have up right now is the basic search. Okay. My recommendation is actually to hit advanced search because this is going to give us a few other filters to get rid of some of the things that we don't want. Okay. For example, newspaper clippings, websites, and all of that. So I'm going to hit that. Okay, it's going to make it look almost overwhelming, but that's okay. Okay. All right, so in my search search box, we're going to type the things that go in to our topic. Now I can't use rock, fungus, and moon scorpion anymore because those aren't real. So I'm going to pick something real now. Should start something that I could spell. Okay, oxpecker is a bird. Hippopotamus is a mammals. These are both animals. You can't do that, so it's for anyone to do. Okay, so there's my search terms. Okay, the other place we're going to go, we're going to ignore 90% of this stuff. Okay, but I want to look at the stuff in this bottom right-hand corner. Okay, the rest of it can stay sort of overwhelming. We're just going to ignore it. Okay, but there's two things down here I really want to pay attention to. This box and this box. Okay. The top box there is for scholarly or peer-reviewed journals. Okay, this is something that we want to focus on here. This is going to help us get rid of the newspaper clippings, the websites, and all of that business. So I'm going to click that. Can somebody tell me what it means to be a peer-reviewed work? Probably a term you've heard before, but never really had to sit down and think about, right? What is a peer-reviewed work, and why does this matter so much? If I submitted my work for publication, could Fallon review it for me? She's my peer, right? I like her. It's credible. Is Fallon credible? She is. She certainly is. But could she review my work for publication? She couldn't, but why? It needs to be an expert in my field, right? So maybe someday Fallon could. But she couldn't today, right? As much as I trust her. Okay? So it needs to be an expert in my field. So if I were to submit a work for publication, it would need to be someone else who also has a doctorate. Sorry, Fallon. Okay? But it would also need to be someone who has similar expertise as me, right? So probably someone who is a statistician, okay? Someone who's a fish geek, and someone who also does experimental design work. Okay? So this would be someone who could look at my work and say, this is stuff that you did right, but this is stuff that I think that you could do better. Okay, so you can fix it and turn it back, just like when you get feedback, right? Okay, so this is what we say when we say peer. It doesn't mean friends. Definitely doesn't mean friends. Okay, what it means is equals. Okay, so someone who is an equal to you. Okay, this helps us keep rigor and make sure nothing sketchy happens when you're doing science. Okay, the other thing we want to look at is the date published. Okay, we don't need to be real fussy with this, but we do want to make sure that your stuff isn't super old. Okay, the stuff particularly before like 1950, 1960, one is super hard to read. Okay, the language from this era is pretentious at best. Okay, not necessarily, but sometimes on purpose. Okay, but generally it's just extremely difficult to read. And if you haven't already read a lot of peer-reviewed articles, this is not where you want to start learning. But also, it's just generally outdated, right? If you pick up a medical journal article from 1905, probably not where you want to learn to do an appendectomy. Okay, that's not going to be how they do it anymore. It's not very valuable, albeit interesting, but not valuable information. And it's the same for most of biology. If we think about how am I going to learn how to control fires, the information from 1900 is not going to be up to date on what we know works best. Okay? It's going to be the same for understanding animal populations and all of that kind of stuff. We do get better as that time goes on. Okay? So we want to stay above certain years. Okay, with all that stuff clicked, I'm going to go ahead and hit search. Okay, and you'll see that a bunch of stuff comes up. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of other things we can do. Okay, I'm going to re-click this. That's my academic journals. Make sure nothing weird. The other thing I'm going to do right now, because I'm with you guys, is going to click available online. The other things also mean there's going to be in the library, so you can go get them, but I can't go get them right now. So since we're just hanging out together, I'm going to make it so we can actually click and do things. Okay. Even given that I had 10, you saw with the stuff that's also in the library, there was like 30 some. Okay, so here are all my choices. Okay, I want to keep an eye. Sometimes things slip through. So on the left-hand side here, you see where it says academic journal. Okay, I want to make sure everything I read says that. Okay, these are going to be the things that are peer-reviewed. There are also some textbooks that will fall into this category. You're more than welcome to, but that's probably something you don't want to tackle at this stage. Okay. So when I click on these, okay, I have all the information at my hand. Okay. You're going to start probably by reading these abstracts. Okay. And here's the key is remember, we're looking for things that are fulfilling my topic. Okay, does this sound like it's a mutualism? And where's my thingy? Okay. The next thing we're going to look for is it readable? Okay. And I mean this from an honest reality too. Most of you have probably not read a lot of peer-reviewed articles before. Okay. Do not make your first article nightmare fuel. There's no reason to do that to yourself. So don't pick a paper that has a ton of mathematical modeling. I still don't read those because they're hard. Okay? Don't read one where every other word you need to Google. Okay, this one doesn't look terrible, but for example, if we didn't, I'm getting down here and I see, okay, I don't know the word Sympatric. I don't know what filariasis is. I don't know. And if that starts to frustrate you and you have to have your phone up and you're Googling a word and reading, Googling a word and reading, thank you. Next. Okay, there's a whole bunch on here. So find one that's fitting your need and your reading level. Okay, you're only going to get better at them if you're willing to spend the time on them. And if you find yourself super frustrated immediately, you're never going to read them. Okay, so find something that fits you. Hey, I already know I don't want to read this one because I don't like the first word. Not going to pick that one. Okay, so it's fine. So find one then that fits you. Okay, look, words I know. Good start. I like ones with words I know. Okay, so start there. Okay, so those are the first realities. Is it peer-reviewed? Is it readable? Do you understand this? Because you're going to have to use it in your paper. That's the whole point, is we're looking for a source that you can use. Okay, now lastly, it needs to have a figure or a table in it. That in and of itself is not a big deal. Most journal articles do. But that figure or table needs to, excuse me, directly relate to your topic. This is the harder part. Okay, most of them have them, but being able to recognize it is a whole different beast. Okay, so if we are using my topic that we were doing before with the scorpions, okay, in my actual figure, I would want to see both the scorpion and the fungus in the actual figure. Okay, can't just have fungus or just have scorpions. And that's super common. You'll see a ton of figures that do that. Okay, so if we think about climate change, and this gets a little confusing, right? You're never probably going to see a figure that just says climate change. Because you don't measure climate change. Climate change is many things altogether, right? But you'll see things that are factors of climate change, right? Temperature over 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100 years, right? So you would need something that says temperature over time. Okay? Or if you were saying penguins, are being altered by climate change, then you would want a figure that says penguins and temperature. That makes sense? Okay. This piece here is the number one thing that causes students to not pass this particular assignment. And it's usually because they've chosen a figure that is something like showing me the map of all of the places that the author has done their study sites from. So it's this really great map, and it's all of the penguin breeding sites. Okay? It's a really cool figure, but it's not a figure for their topic. So I can see penguins, for example, on their figure, but there's no penguins and fish, right? Or there's no penguins and temperature. Okay, so you always need to make sure that you have both parts in your figure. So I have a good example in here for you guys. Okay, so if I had done, my search here, which is why I did my search, right? The oxpecker, which is a bird, and my hippopotamus. Okay, here's an example what a figure I would want would look like. Okay, on my x-axis, okay, I have locations that all have high densities of hippopotamuses. Hippopotami? Okay. So, as a reassurance to myself, I would literally circle that axis and say, here's my hippopotamus. Okay. So there's one part of my topic. Okay. My y-axis then is directly my oxpecker. Ooh, oxpeckers, my birds, right? RBO means red-bellied oxpecker. It's done. The bird. It's the bird. Okay, so I would circle that and say, all right, there's my bird. So I can look at this graph and very confidently say, I know that this has both parts of my topic when I go to submit it. Okay, if I just had something that said like birds and temperature, that would not be a good graph, right? Because it's missing my hippos. Does that make sense? So the graphs will be in your article. So if I go in here, I'm now in the article. Here we go. And all of these articles will have different figures in them. And so you just need to find an article that has a good graphic that fits you. Ooh, that one's pretty. Does that make sense? Does everybody see where I click to get into the article? On the left-hand side here, there's a PDF link. Right on the left-hand side. And that'll bring me into a given article. So your first article may not be the article you end up keeping, either because it's really difficult to read, or because you end up not liking any of the figures or tables right? You could also find a good table. I'm a figure girl, but a table is just as good as long as, again, table has both parts in it. Okay, once you find, let me go back in there. Okay, once you find the article that you like, let's pretend, for the sake of argument, this is the perfect article. Has everything we need. Okay, then you need to download it, okay, which is this button up here. It's going to let me. Okay, because you're ultimately going to need to submit a copy of the PDF of your assignment. Okay, I would change the file name so you can find it later. I'm lazy. Okay, UC Quest, Google Scholar, they all do the same thing. They've got some default name. It will be nightmare fuel if you don't change it to a Bio 130 article. I don't care, but name it something valuable. Okay. Any questions about how we found our article and what kinds of things you want to look for? Okay. So when we go back to this, our specific keywords then is our UC Quest terms. Yeah. So you only need one. You only need one article. Just has to be both readable and have your graphic or table.
One article?
One article. Okay. Once you find that article, then you're going to fill all of this stuff out. Most of the stuff is pretty straightforward, so my title and authors. Okay. When I do the description of study, okay, not copy, paste. Okay. Do not copy the abstract and stick that in there. Okay. Do not copy the first paragraph in the introduction and stick that in there. Okay. One, I'm gonna know you didn't write that. Okay. But two, you're going to want to write your own summary. One, is going to help make sure that you understand what this article is about. But two, then you're going to be able to use what you wrote later when you write your paper. Okay? So you're preloading the work on the front end, which we like to do. Okay? So it's really important that you take the time and write this in your own words now. Okay? And it should be more than a sentence. It's going to take you more than a sentence to tell me what a 10-page article is about. Ideally. Okay. Same thing with the figure, which is the second box set. Okay, all you need to do is tell me which figure you picked. You do not, I know I did here, so you guys would have an example. No, don't do that. It's weird. Okay. Where you guys can see I copied the figure in. You don't have to do that. You don't need to figure out how to copy out of a PDF. It's kind of a pain. Okay. I did that so you could clearly see what a good example of a figure is. Okay, you just need to tell me which one you've picked, number 2 or number 8. Some of these have a lot. Okay, just tell me which one you like. Okay, and then again, tell me what it's about. Do not copy the figure legend. Okay, again, we want to make sure that you understand what's going on in that figure. Because again, you're going to use the figure in your research paper. Okay, so you want to feel good about what's going on there. Okay, since you're going to upload the article for me, this is going to be one of the only times that you upload 2 documents. You're going to upload your final version of this. Okay, so stop it. You're going to upload this, and you're going to upload that PDF. I'll be able to find whatever figure it is that you picked and look at it myself. the last thing then you're going to do is give me, so you're not going to do this, but you are going to do the citation. You're going to practice that because you're going to have to do a bibliography for your research paper. So you might as well know by the time you get there that you've done all your citations right. Okay? Now, I will tell you, okay, we're back at my article here. Along the right-hand side, okay, the little thing that looks like a piece of paper. Why am I not drawing? We'll do the citation for me. Okay. It gives you an overwhelming number of choices, so you have to find the APA one. Okay. But then you can just copy and paste it out of there. With the caveat, it's not always correct. Okay. This one happens to be, the one I did for the 9 a.m. class was not. Which makes a much better example. So go ahead and copy and paste it out of here, but then I would just pull up like the APA Purdue OWL thing and just manually double check that it's not. And it's usually small things like the one from 9 a.m. just didn't have the page range. Right? It was just missing, and it's just missing something really small. All right, so just double check it. Okay, nothing does better than you double checking something, but it still has done no matter what, right? 95% of the work. So it's better than doing it from scratch, which I am all for. Right? We're all for that. So you can do that. You can also get it, if I go back to my abstract page, so this is all the info, it'll give it to you there as well. Everybody see that? Okay. Any questions about the process we used here?
So like, let's just say we can't find an article for whatever reason, like it might not have a figure or something. Do you want us to change our whole subject or just the search terms to look at it?
So my best recommendation is just alter your search terms. Usually there's always an article for something. Okay. And I actually do that this morning. I had too many search terms, and that's why I had better luck this afternoon than what I was doing. So if I throw in the word mutualism in here, I come up with like nothing. It just gets real cranky with me. These papers are definitely about mutualism. It just sometimes UC Quest and Google gets real cranky if you're very specific about what you want. So the best thing you can do, the first thing to try is try altering your search terms. Okay? Be a little less specific about your species or use one less word. And let it find you. Okay? That brings a really good next segue. If you get super stuck and very frustrated, I rarely recommend going all the way back to the drawing board and getting a totally new topic, because that can be ultra frustrating, particularly if you get to Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday. This is due Friday. Okay. My next best recommendation would be just shoot an email or grab a tutoring appointment or an office appointment and just get a little bit of help. Usually having a second set of eyes helping you search for things or helping you look at, can we be sure that this figure is going to fit, right? That 5 minutes, right, will save you a ton of heartache. Okay. So remember, this is a research assignment, but it's a big one. So you can always redo it, okay, but it's the biggest assignment we have, so it'll cost you 3 badges to do, okay, which is half of your total badges. That's precious. Okay, so we want to make sure that we've spent some time, so I'm giving a whole week to think about it. We want to make sure we've really spent some time thinking about it. So do not wait until Friday at noon to start looking at this. That won't give you enough time to make a tutoring appointment. Okay, you may be able to grab me, but you're going to feel very stressed and flustered when you do this, right? Stressed and flustered. That is fine. Yes. So in the same Dropbox, for one time only, the Dropbox will actually let you upload 2 files. Right, so So when you go to submit, which will not let me do, it's going to look totally different. Good question. So in your Dropbox, when you guys click on here, instead of this, it gives you that submit files option. Okay. When you go into submit files, it's going to let you submit 2 files. So you're going to submit your finished Word document, right, with all of your terms and your paper information. The second thing you're going to commit to me is the PDF. Okay. And it'll let you do them as separate files. You're not going to have to do any weird witchcraft to make that happen. Okay. One last thing I will remind you on that is I can see what you name your file names. I usually don't make a big deal out of it, but when you name it like biochem or this sucks, I can see that. And it sucks to read. So just be cognizant. I get everyone has a bad day, and so I rarely say anything unless you inundate it with swear words. But just be very cognizant of those sorts of things. It shows them to me. And I get it, so it's not that big of a deal. But just be aware, like, all your professors can see what you're naming your stuff. And any questions about any of this stuff? Does it make sense? Okay. So go ahead, and my recommendation would be just to poke around at least today and tomorrow, right, so you can get an idea. Okay. We are just not going to fuss with our slides. So our teacher's question will be the name of the assignment. And you can just put lesson 3. You don't have to put the whole thing, because that's a lot to type, right? Okay, so do make sure you still fill out your Socrative. If you have any questions, do make sure you're getting them asked.